Good morning, YouTubers and toy train lovers. I recently received a challenge from Mr. James Conductor on YouTube to power this little Lionel lines copy of the rail Zeppelin by the propeller and not by the wheels and the propeller. And first of all, I have to tell you the history. I'll say that this is a foot long. I have not put it on the postage scales, but right now the way I've got it set up, it's fairly heavy. Shillings made this model for Lionel, and it was rather hard to come by, and I happened to be walking through the gift store of the California State Railroad Museum in Sacramento, California, and I saw this sitting on the shelf for 21 bucks. I thought, oh, cool, I'm going to buy it. And as you can see, it was clockwork. There's the hole in the side, and when you wound it up, it would probably go 2.5 times around my layout, and my layout's roughly 10 by 4 on 031 track. I'm not sure if it'd even go around 027 when it had its original motor in there. And I saw on I'm trying to remember the name of the magazine. Let me look. I've got one sitting right here. Sorry about that. Classic Toy Trains had a conversion for this to convert it over to AC to run with your regular Lionel trains. And what you did is you put one of the old MPC DC switcher carriages underneath, and I think you can see the two wheels, and put a separate little can motor that you would get from Radio Shack to the back and control the shaft for the propeller, and it worked. Obviously you'd have to convert it from DC to AC, which is very easy, and they gave you all the instructions. And so I'd forgotten about this when Mr. James Conductor challenged me to convert this over to propeller drive only. I went, I don't even know where this thing is, because it never ran that great. It had a lot of problems with traction. And I'll give you a little history and why I am not going to take the challenge with this particular model, because I would find it very impractical. First of all, the original wheels for the rail Zeppelin front wheels were about here, and the rear wheels were about here, so you evenly distributed the weight. I would call it the carriage or the drivetrain are centered as per the what Shillings originally did for Lionel, and per the Classic Toy Trains instructions for conversion. And problem with that is that the weight wasn't centered over the wheels. There is one rear wheel, and I don't remember if it's on this side or the opposite side, which is a rubber traction tire, but it never quite wanted to run around the tracks unless you got it up to a good high speed, and then you were afraid of derailing it. So I uploaded a film on YouTube years ago with this thing running, and it was running quite good. I found some old German music from the 30s and played it, and it was really a lot of fun, and I felt good that I had converted something and that it actually worked, but it didn't work that great. So when I brought it out the other day, I ran around the track and I thought, what the problem is? This has you got a lot of weight back here where they've done the, I don't know if they've soldered or used tab and slots. I think they used tab and slots and bent all this extra metal in the back. And then you got a lot of weight up front. So you've got overhang on both ends. And so the poor little drivetrain in the middle really wasn't, it was wonky. So I didn't want to remove the tab and slots because you bend them too many times, they're going to break. So I found a bunch of heavy magnets that would go on either side of this little motor here and shoved them up into the shell. And it seems to work fairly well now. So that, of course, would be the opposite thing you'd want to do if you'd want to run this by propeller. The original rail Zeppelin, most people look at old films and they think, oh, that looks like a solid piece of machinery there. Well, no, it was built just like a Zeppelin with an aluminum frame. That's why you see these cross members through the windows. And I'm going to take the camera over to the computer and show you an old film of it running naked. Let's see. There it is. Okay, now I can move the camera. I don't do a lot of filming where I am all set up to black things out and go to the next frame and all that fancy stuff. But believe it or not, I've got a film of the darn thing running naked, which I call it. It doesn't have its cover on it. And this is the aluminum shell. And this is why it was so light. And this is why a propeller could run it. And you'll see the old style propeller where they used an older aircraft motor and it wasn't as efficient, and it had a four-bladed motor. And they eventually went over to a heavier six-cylinder diesel motor with a very large two-blade propeller, and that's when they got it going so fast. And I'm trying to remember the speed. This was like 150 miles an hour or something like that. This is a fascinating old film. And this was done in Germany. And yes, this does look very solid, but it's just basically like the old biplanes. They've put a cloth covering over it, and I assume the cloth is whatever they used on the Zeppelins. possibly the material that they use on tents. But pretty cool. But we're going to go back to the train now. My train. My little rail Zeppelin. You see my Mark's Mercury set in the back. And we're going to have to set this. We're going to move the camera up. And we're going to fade out. There we go. And we're actually going to run this. Now, my answer to the challenge and I've got to go to another YouTube page to get the challenger correct. His name was Mr. James Conductor. He has one of these. Is that this shell is too heavy. You would have to put something like perhaps a little gasoline motor that you would run on a remote control airplane on the back of this, and you certainly don't want to have that in the house. Or I don't know what kind of fan motors they have out. I know they have a lot of mini fans, but it would be so big you would have to attach it to the outside rear and obviously remove all those magnets. And then I think you'd have derailing problems because once again it would get wonky and all the weight would be to the rear of the train. So I'm not going to take the challenge simply because I finally got this working right, and simple physics tells you it wouldn't work. Perhaps with a flat car frame underneath it and wheels up front and four-wheel trucks, you could do something. But I think if you wanted to make one of these that worked off with an electric can motor, you would have to get a 3D printer and copy this in very light plastic and then put your flat car underneath with your two four-wheel trucks, and then put a really decent size can motor in here to run this shaft, and put a prop in the back from a remote control airplane, toy airplane. And for some reason the twin prop, like I said, the twin prop worked much better than the four-bladed prop. So the people who originally built this learned their lessons. So I'm just going to say that it works better because they found out it worked better back in the 1930s. So let's fire up and run it around now that I've got all the extra weight in here. And you can't run it really slow because I don't want to take it apart. It really needs some more weight in here to give it better traction. But I like to start it out slow, so it looks like these are two can motors, so it looks like the propeller's warming up, and you'll see us try to budge forward. There she goes. Let's get her going. She's stuck. Almost. See if she makes it around. And see, just by me putting my hand on there and adding some weight, made it go around. Could go around this time. There she goes. Pretty slick, huh? And I thought of making a sort of a joke, a film of why the rail Zeppelin never gained popularity in Germany, and having a big ribbon cutting ceremony where I cut the ribbon, I have some great music in the background, there's dozens of people standing at the railroad station to wish it farewell on its journey, and then when it takes off you see it going down the track, and then you go back and look, and all the heads are cut off of the people standing on the railroad platform, which was a real concern when they ran these. Obviously, all the people's hats went flying, but particularly when they put the larger double prop on the rear, I don't know if it cut somebody's head off, but it would certainly smash their skull and break their neck or their back. It was pretty dangerous, but it was a great concept. And what came out of it is, when you look at the modern high-speed trains that run in Germany, in France, and in Japan, they're using this streamline. They're really a copy of this shell right here. So it did sort of live on, and I guess you couldn't put one at Disneyland or anywhere. It's just too dangerous. But anyway, that's my answer to Mr. James Conductor. No. Too impractical. Make your 3D copy with light plastic, and possibly you can get a can motor and the right blades and the right carriage where the wheels are out further, and she'll go just fine down your track. And I don't have that kind of money to buy a 3D printer, and I'm not really that interested in that kind of a project. So everybody, thanks for watching. And I haven't named this guy yet. If anybody can come up with a good name for my Zeppelin, like Schultz, something like that. My favorite character, Sergeant Schultz. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe that's what I'll call him. So once again, this has been a Big Lizard production. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.